In this video, we're going to be breaking down this simple greenhouse cover that's made for a raised garden bed. And this is really awesome and a really great idea if you have a greenhouse or kind of a garden structure that's got some wooden supports that you can attach to. And we'll talk about that as we go through the build, but this is a really great project, and this was shared by Eric. It's really cool, basically just doing some gardening in the winter and needing to protect the plants from frost. And they built this really simple cover that covers their raised garden bed here, and it's just a really great build and really not too complicated. So we'll break it down. Here we can kind of see, everything in place with the covering and the greenhouse plastic, and we'll come back to that. But first, we'll talk about the framework here. And basically, this is made with 3/4 inch EMT conduit, which you can find in the electrical aisle of local stores like Lowe's, Home Depot, different hardware and home improvement stores. And then the connectors that are holding the pieces of conduit together and kind of joining them are connectors that we manufacture in South Carolina, and people use those all over the country for building things like this. And it's a pretty simple framework overall. And if you're unfamiliar with conduit and connectors, they're really easy to build with, and you can cut EMT conduit to any size you want. You buy it in a 10-foot stick and then cut it down, and you just use a rotating pipe and tube cutter. And here it looks like Eric basically used a horizontal piece in the back, and this attaches to the wooden kind of supports of the main. We don't really see what kind of structure this is, if it's like a large enclosure or something, but we can basically see we've got these wooden planks here this is attached to. And then he's just using the EMT conduit 2-hole straps and those are basically just a really inexpensive piece of hardware that just snap onto the conduit and then have a hole so you can drill through them and attach conduit to flat surfaces. And basically that's how he's basically hinging these and attaching these to the wooden supports there. And basically that horizontal piece just goes from one side to the other and then is secured to the wooden beams with those. And then we've got some Maker Pipe T connectors here in the corners, and actually just in the back 2 corners. And those are just securing the horizontal piece to these other pieces of conduit that are running to the front here. And then both of these on both sides terminate inside of the T connector. You don't have to do any drilling or welding when using our connectors. You just use a 5mm hex wrench to put them together. And because of that, the piece of conduit just terminate and rely on friction. The connector pieces just kind of squeeze around the conduit. And so we're using the T connector there to secure those corners, to the back bar there that it's attached to the wooden beams. And we got another T connector here that's grabbing onto that horizontal piece. And then you've got this piece of conduit running to the front. Again, these are terminating there in the T connector. You got another T connector grabbing on here, and I imagine those 3 pieces of conduit are all the same length. And then in the front, it's slightly different because he's using the 90-degree connector, which functions similarly, except it adds an additional pipe at a 90-degree angle. So basically, the middle of the connector is open and allows a vertical piece of conduit to run continuously through it. This could keep on going forever if you wanted to, but it doesn't. It just stops here at the top and sits flush with the connector there. And then we've got the other piece of conduit coming out at a 90-degree angle and terminates in the connector and then goes all the way to the other side and runs all the way through the top half of that T, goes to the other side to another 90-degree connector and then terminates there inside of that. And then again, we've got another vertical here that sits flush with the top of the 90, and that's just running through the middle of the 90 there. So 2 more of the 2 total 90-degree connectors. So it's 4 T connectors and 2 90-degree connectors to make this. And then it's just the 2-hole straps holding it to the framework there. And the reason he did the 90s in the front was so this could be slightly elevated off of the garden bed. You can see that vertical piece of conduit just rests on the concrete wall there, and just kind of adds some elevation and some separation between the plants and this greenhouse cover. So that's really easy to accomplish, nothing too crazy, and really works great, like I said, if you've got those wooden supports that you can attach to. Then we can go back to this other photo and we can see the greenhouse plastic draped over the frame, and then he's using the greenhouse plastic clips. Those are just made to snap over materials, and they're made for greenhouse plastic, but you can use them for sunshades and different things. But here in this case, he's using it as intended for greenhouse plastic, and they just basically snap over the plastic and the conduit at the same time, and really easy to just secure those in place. And then that's just draped down and hanging up over the front there of the bed, as we can see, and then down the sides, and it's just adding some protection to these plants in here. really awesome and just a really great idea. Nice and simple to accomplish, but a really great thing to protect the plants. So really cool. Thanks so much, Eric, for sharing this. I think he said there's another structure very similar to this one that's in the corner, and that's just being used for some larger plants. So pretty much the same design from what we can see, and it's just protecting the plants that are just a little bit taller and bigger than these smaller ones. So really cool. Thanks so much for sharing this. I'll link this post down below if you want to check out the photos in more detail. Hope you enjoyed this. If you did, leave a like and consider subscribing. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you in the next one.